Well, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome in from across the continent. My name is Jesse, and welcome to another exciting Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants episode as we get to feature the coolest scientists and explorers on planet Earth. Now, before I get underway with today's topic, I do want to highlight we have a Kahoot today. So between our talk and Q&A, if you want to play along with a little 4-question quiz, that game pin will allow you to do just that, test your understanding, and have a little bit of fun for bragging rights. Now, in this job, we've done programs for 10 years. We've got over 4,000 shows on our YouTube channel. Anything you could ever imagine, it's all right there. And one of our favorite groups to partner with in the world is the Schmidt Ocean Institute because, as many of you kids will know, we've explored more of the moon and Mars and of our seafloor, and we're working to change that. The Falkor 2 is one of the ships working to understand and map the seafloor and understand all that goes on the oceans of our planet. So it's always a thrill to get to feature them. And a couple of months back, Hannah, their education lead, who's partnered with us for years, said, look, Jesse, we've got this super cool expedition off the coast of Chile with the best scientists exploring one of the coolest places on planet Earth. Do you want to do a broadcast? And of course, I said, absolutely, because how often do opportunities like that come up? So you guys are all in for a treat today as we get to go live to the Falkor 2 from the aft deck and with some really cool videos to highlight all their cool explorations and discoveries. Without further ado, I'm going to zip it and turn it over to our Falkor crew. Thank you so much for joining us again, and take us away, folks, as we're circling our ship with our epic drone footage here. Hi, guys.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dakota Betts. I am a master's student from the University of California from sunny San Diego. Welcome to the Falkor 2. We are just off the southern coast of Chile. ROV is currently in the water. We are exploring a shallow canyon site. Here we are on our aft deck. This is quite a large ship. We deploy many different instruments. Here we have our gravity core, which is basically a large anchor-like device that takes sediment samples at different levels. And in those sediments are of particular interest to geologists, biologists, and microbiologists. We also have our multi-beam sediment processor here as well, which also takes sediment samples in multiple different places. And all of that sediment is shared amongst the scientists on board and processed when they come up. So here we are on our aft deck where we deploy things like the gravity core and the multi-beam. But this is a large ship, and I'd love to take you along. So right now we're headed into the main deck where ROV Sebastian is stored when it is not at the exploring the bottom of the ocean. But it is currently down right now, so unfortunately I can't give you a tour of Sebastian, but we will go into mission control and see what it's up to at the moment. So here we have kind of our main deck area. This is where Sebastian is launched and recovered, and where all of the hungry scientists gather around late at night to process samples. We have multiple sinks for washing sediments and processing all of our samples. Lots of buckets. On the left-hand side here, we have our CTD, conductivity, temperature, and salinity are measured with this device. So things like temperature, salinity, dissolved oxygen, all of those important variables to oceanographers, marine biologists alike are captured from this CTD. Yeah, so yeah, here we have kind of our deck where you can see Sebastian is tethered by that line and currently exploring the bottom of the ocean, which we will show some footage of. But here is where we recover our samples and process the things like slurp chambers and bio boxes, all things that Sebastian is equipped with to recover samples. And so this is kind of where all the magic happens, and a lot of people are frantically gathering samples. Yeah, this is kind of the main deck area. Should we go inside? Wonderful. So here we have another lab where some people are set up. There are many different lab spaces on this ship, and it is a huge ship. There's multiple freezers, refrigerators, but perhaps most importantly to the biologists like myself are the cold room storage. Uh, yeah, no worries. Cool. Camera's frozen, but we are coming back in due time.
This is the joy of virtual broadcasting. Sometimes things should go a little wrong, but we've got some incredible footage that you're showing us too. So it looks like we're back. We're back in the labs, and if we ever hop out for a second, we'll just show some cool stuff on the go that you guys have on the go all the time.
Yeah. So, um, really important when animals come up from the depths. We're talking 2,000 meters and below. Um, Temperature, not only pressure, but temperature is a very important factor to preserving their integrity and keeping them alive. And so immediately, as samples come off of Sebastian, we like to have cold, clean seawater to keep the animals alive and happy. And I have some great animals to show you guys today. In this bucket here, we have some pycnogonid sea spiders with eggs. Fun fact about pycnogonids, the males actually rear the eggs and carry them until they hatch, not the females. I would be happy to take these out of the bucket and show you in my lab space. We also have a squat lobster, a munidopsis, carrying eggs. So in both of our crustaceans today, we had eggs on our animals. But this area is really just a holding place to keep animals cold, preserving DNA integrity, so we're able to properly work with them and be as humane as possible. So I'll bring the sea spiders to my lab area, show you guys around.
This is so cool, by the way. It's amazing. I don't think we've ever seen these in any of our broadcasts together. So really neat to see sea spiders, which are one of my favorite groups in the world as well. So lucky you guys, kids.
Yeah, and they are alive, so that is awesome. So, welcome to where I've been spending the past 2 or 3 weeks or so. This is one of the wet lab areas. There are several in this ship, but in this room is a lot of very useful equipment, particularly the television that is streaming the dives. So, you can contact your friends in mission control and say, hey, I would like to collect that, or hey, can we get a picture of that? And so not only is the camera great for keeping up with Sebastian's progress, but it's also hooked up to my microscope. And so I am able to take live photos with this TV. And I'll show you guys some of the pictures I've been taking over the past 2 or 3 weeks. And so our lab in San Diego specializes with polychaetes, echinoderms, and so we really like to get good quality photos of our animals taxonomically, so we're able to describe them later on if they happen to be new species. But having a television connected to your microscope is great because you can see in high definition how your photos are turning out. And some of the cool worms we've collected over the past couple weeks, these are acrocerid swimming worms. They are pelagic. And so really just a great place. I actually have the camera inserted into the eyepiece of the microscope, and that projects onto that television, so I am able to see what I'm looking at under the microscope. So some sea spiders, as promised. So sea spiders are actually not related to arachnids at all, but they are an arthropod. They are not related to true spiders, though they do have 8 legs. These sea spiders are both rearing eggs, and we know from that that they are both males. These spiders came up from around 2,000 meters in depth, And we've collected several from different depths on this cruise. It will be interesting to see if they are the same species or not. I also have these great lights that illuminate the animals and make great for photography. They have small hairs on their legs called setae and a large proboscis underneath these two claspers here. And the eggs are actually carried by small legs, these, uh, and the males carry them to term. And so what will we do with these sea spiders? We will take a small subsample for DNA purposes, and these specimens will be deposited with a museum here in Chile. And we will determine what they are from lab work in the future. Yeah, so this is my lab where I work. Shall we head into mission control?
Absolutely. The more
And
rooms, the better.
This one, sorry. So here in mission control, you have the ROV pilots and several scientists who are making their logging data. They are making observations, taking photos, all while Sebastian is capturing footage in 4K. But you also have the pilots who work with the scientists in collaboration and figure out what is being collected, or it's a huge teamwork between the pilots and the scientists to figure out what is needed, where are we going, and all of that. Shall we go inside? So here we have our mission control with several different monitors playing at once. We are able to monitor different viewpoints of the ROV, both in front and underneath. Sebastian is equipped with mechanical arms, as well as suction, and those help us collect our samples like what is being done now. Right now they're collecting, looks like a beautiful coral.
And how far down are we right now?
So, as you can see, loggers are taking accurate notes, so we're able to track when and where specimens were collected, as well as where they're being stored. Because when Sebastian comes up, there's multiple chambers and storage containers that need to be addressed. Wonderful. So that is mission control. Show some more animals. Yeah, cool. Yeah. So here we have kind of a working station where our scientists are able to work and also watch the dives on several different streams. There are also mapped waypoints to keep up with Sebastian's progress from a mapping standpoint and see where we are traveling, as well as several different things taking measurements as well. Yeah, so this is a common working space. Many of the scientists spend a lot of time here.
I always love getting to walk around the ship because it's such a tremendous
Main lab?
vessel.
Yeah.
So much on the go.
So here we have probably the largest room, the main laboratory. There are several bench spaces as well as several freezers and refrigerators to store all the busy scientists' work and progress. There are also multiple biosafety hoods for working with chemicals that may not be safe outside the hood. There are several monitors as well as lighting and snorkel hoods to keep everyone safe and able to see what they're working at. So this is kind of a communal room for geologists and microbiologists, and many of the scientists share this room. So yeah, this is kind of our main lab. Wonderful. Good. Wonderful. So I guess I could show you guys some more animals, if that's what we want to do, or should I show them more of the ship? What do you think?
Animals are always cool. Whatever makes you guys happy, and then we can dive in with questions early as well. So we've got lots of classes with all sorts of queries already. Whatever makes you guys happy.
Sure. I would. I'd love to show one of the animals I spent most of the morning excavating from a tube. So maybe some of you have seen those viral worms in Florida that burrow into the sand, and they're about 1 meter long. Well, this is a close relative of those worms in the same general group. This is a unicid polychaete, and it has this very iridescent shine thanks to the collagenous structures, and that collagen actually reflects light and makes it appear iridescent, although in the depths of the ocean where there is no light, it's actually not iridescent at all. So it's our lights that make them shine. But this is a unicid polychaete. They have very strong jaws, much like the beach worms you may have seen. And this is the biggest polychaete I have collected so far on this cruise, although they get much bigger. We do a lot of work with polychaetes and phylogenetics, taxonomy, describing new species, collecting DNA from known species. And so polychaetes are really my lab's kind of bread and butter. And we spend a lot of time taking pictures and collecting samples for polychaetes. And you have a variety of tools. It's kind of like a surgeon. I have many different scissors and tweezers and photography boxes, because as you can imagine, taking live photographs on a moving ship is very hard, and getting the lighting and the depth of field and things like that are very sensitive, especially when you're in 3 or 4 plus meter seas and your animals are kind of going all over the place. And so it is a balancing act of getting the perfect setup, and that allows us to do the best science as possible. So with that, I think I'll turn it over. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, for one thing, if there are any other animals in the lab that you'd like to share at any point during the Q&A, certainly our kids are very keen on that. What we're going to begin with is a little bit of a Kahoot. So we're going to have 4 questions on some deep sea stuff and underwater exploration to start with. And then we are going to dive in with all our classes live for questions. So Mr. Hancock, you guys are going to be first, but Holy Family, Spring Valley Middle, our California group, lots of opportunity to get in with your queries after that. But let me pull up our Kahoot quiz now. And I just want to say, too, having hailed from San Diego, it's nice to get to hear San Diego's name, because it is one of the best cities in the world. Yeah. Lucky you.
Spring Valley. Spring Valley. Good to see you guys. Yeah, yes. I'm a long way from home. But, yeah, hopefully it's still sunny over there.
Oh, cool creatures, too. So, folks, for those who are new to Kahoot, the faster you answer, the more points you get. We've got our beautiful, crabby guy here on our video that we're going to highlight on the side. But I'm going to start us off with our first question of 4, and then we can't wait for all your queries. If you're joining on YouTube, you can share your questions in the chat as well. But our live classes, I'll be able to come to you all directly in just a minute. Question number 1, our team today. So everyone we've met, we've walked around. Where are they joining us off the coast of? This is mentioned at the very beginning of the broadcast. Is it Brazil, Mexico, Chile, or Barbados? What do we think? Maybe it featured in that banner I brought up for a second. Who was paying attention? 8 answers in so far. Chile is our correct answer. Yes, both Joe and I got to be on the coast of Chile earlier this year on the Darwin 200. It's a really, really special country with some amazing science on the go. So it's really nice to get the chance to hang out with the Falcor 2 crew there. Nimble Frog takes our lead. So we go to question 2. The deepest point of the ocean is how far down? So we're not at the deepest point of the ocean on this voyage, but I always like to highlight it. Is it 2,000 feet, 10,000 feet, 5,280 feet, or over 30,000 feet? With some references beside each one of those. Let's get those answers in. We've featured submersibles that have been to the deepest point. We've had people on that have been to the deepest point, which, yes, is over 30,000 feet down. So Mount Everest could fit snugly in the Mariana Trench, the deepest point of the world's ocean. That changes up our leaderboard considerably. Expert Giraffe takes our lead. All right, we got 2 more as we're playing with our sea spiders here on the side. And this one should be easy. There's no life on the seafloor. True or false? What do we got in this picture on the side? This is your hint, everybody. We've got, yes, most of you got this right. That is correct. False. There's tons of life on the seafloor. The seafloor is teeming with life of all kinds. That's one of the great joys of scientific discovery over the last few decades, is just how much is down there. And finally, what on earth are these? So in the picture, is it sea plants, calcium deposits, giant worms, or chimney stacks of the deep? Some of you might have seen these before. We didn't talk about them today, but they are maybe similar in some fashion to an animal that we did get the chance to feature. Got some cool other creatures featuring in our video on the side as well. Creatures abounding. So these are giant worms. Nobody got this right. Those are tube worms. Everyone should go look up tube worms. They're one of the coolest things that we've ever discovered on the seafloor. They can be like 6 feet long. They're insane. They're an awesome, awesome animal. Go look up tube worms and blow your mind when you're done the program. Smart Otter is second, and first for all the marbles is, let's see, Honest Bear. If you are Honest Bear, way to go, everybody. Thanks for playing along with that. And our Falcor 2 team with this awesome video. Man, you guys get to do the coolest stuff. We're going to head to Mr. Hancock's class for our first question. So come on in Georgetown and take us away, guys. Hey.
Hey, we had one of our students wondering, how can things survive down there with all that pressure? And then vice versa, how are those spiders surviving up here without the pressure?
Great question.
Great question. The pressure, they actually have bubbles that help them adjust. And more often than not, they seem to respond well. But when you get below a certain depth, pressure certainly seems to play a factor. And so these sea spiders were actually not collected from that deep, below 2,000 meters. And so what really is the factor with animals from the deep is temperature. Temperature changes that are too drastic can actually kill animals much faster than pressure. Pressure certainly plays a role in terms of internal organs being inflated, but some animals have adapted miraculously to those pressure changes, and gaseous structures internally help them adjust. Yeah.
Fascinating. I always like highlighting this on the temperature front, because as people, we're used to, like, it gets cold, we put on a sweater, or it gets too hot, we take off a layer, we put some cold water in our neck. Most animals don't have that luxury. Like, we've developed all these structures to house us, and internal heating and air conditioning and other things. Temperature is one of the biggest factors for animals of all kinds wherever they are around the world. It's why climate change plays such a role in impacting where they live. So cool question to kick us off, guys. All right. In our NASA shirt at the Holy Family School, come on in Thunder Bay, guys. Unmute your mic and you're good to go. Hey.
How big can the sea spider get?
Ooh, good question.
What was the question?
Oh, how big can the sea spiders get?
Oh, in Antarctica, over a meter long. Over a meter long, so several feet. The biggest one we've collected so far here in Chile has been about a foot long.
Which is like, so for comparison, like this big for our ones there and this big for our ones in Antarctica. So almost as big as some of you kids in our younger classes today, which is wild.
Yeah.
We've actually done a few programs with Hugh Griffiths, who does Antarctic biodiversity and finds sea spiders there. They're on our YouTube channel, so you can see some really monstrous creatures off the coast of Antarctica. Cool question, guys. All right, Spring Valley Middle. Mr. Warbin's class, come on in and take us away. Hey.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Oh yeah, you're perfect.
All right. Yeah, we have one question about, well, we have a couple questions, but one's about do you have any manned submersibles there? Or are they all robotic submersibles?
We do not have a manned submersible above the aboard the Falcor 2. They are robotic. Yeah. Remotely.
You've highlighted the ROV Sebastian a bunch, and we got a chance to see
And
some.
sorry, what was the second question?
Oh no, that was the question. Robots or manned submersibles, that's all. But if you're keen, I've passed along in the chat the link to Sebastian and some of the explorations it's going on, and we've also featured some manned submersibles here. But one of the great things about robots is that it's much easier to build a robot that can go down and explore really deep places than it is a manned submersible. So there's a lot more of these in the world, and we've made subsequently more discoveries with them, both in deep sea research and in space research. So I always love this question, and it means that robots are awesome. Thanks, guys. All right, Mr. Hancock, come on back in and take us away with another. Hey.
Absolutely. One of the students was wondering, do the sea spiders bite, or what are their adaptations to survive?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Oh yeah, that's okay. So the question is, do the sea spiders bite, or what other adaptations do they have to survive?
Yeah, they absolutely do bite. They have a proboscis. I don't believe they're venomous, but they do have a proboscis that they can sink their prey, sink their fangs into, right here, and they feed on small crustaceans, many different things. But they absolutely do have a proboscis. I'm not going to stick my hand in there and figure out, so I'm always very careful. But they certainly are predators and feed on small crustaceans, things of that nature.
And then if something tried to eat them, is there a defense mechanism they have? Do they have any ink, or are they just swimming away or walking away, or what's the deal? Do we know enough about them?
They don't. They have CD, these kind of hairs that would make them kind of unpalpable, but not that I'm aware of any toxicity in their skeleton or anything of that nature. Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, good to know. By the way, the classes are itching for you to put your hand in there and see what might happen, which incidentally could go viral for you guys. So it's worth a consideration by the end of the broadcast.
Yeah.
In lieu of that, we'll head back to our Holy Family crew. Come on back in, fourth graders, and take us away. Hey guys, unmute. Yes. Almost there. Come back. No worries. You can keep unmuted the whole time, actually.
Sorry. Another question? You want another question?
Anyone else have any queries?
Oh, another question? Can you come back to us?
I sure can. I'll come back in a second. You guys put your thinking caps on, and we'll be right back to you guys. Our Spring Valley Middle crew, I know you have a student right at the camera, so come on up and take us away. Hey.
How many different species have you guys discovered?
Ooh.
Great question. Yeah. So the question was, how many species have we discovered?
Yes.
In our lab in San Diego, the lab I'm currently a student in, my professor, Greg Rouse, has discovered over 400 species in his time as a professor. In our lab in San Diego, we roughly describe around 10 to 20 species per year. Although on this cruise, there's probably much more. But taxonomists have a grueling job, and that many of the species we find are undescribed. And so it's important for you guys to consider a career in taxonomy, because the problem is there are too many undescribed species and not enough taxonomists to describe them. And so realistically, we are probably sitting on hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands, that are awaiting to be described by the next generation of taxonomists.
So I want to harp on this for a second for our students' sake and for your sake. I mean, this is mind-blowing, because we go outside, I see a squirrel, I see a blue jay, like we've known about those forever. Like we've described those hundreds, if not thousands of years ago. Every time we send a vessel to go explore the deep sea, we find new species. The fact that you so casually mentioned that your professor has found 400 species is insane, because it means that, again, that there's so much out there to be discovered that we have not really identified and learned about in a very serious way. And that's why voyages like this are so important. Same is true for the rainforest, but it's just mind-blowing to have the opportunity to feature you in these stories with the knowledge that, like, the creatures that we're seeing in these broadcasts might be entirely new to science. So thank you so much for that question, guys, and great answer. All right.
Great question.
Oh, Holy Family, come on back in. You're at the camera. You're good to go.
What makes pressure underwater?
What makes pressure underwater?
Yep.
Yeah, good question.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Why is there such pressure underwater? Can you explain a little bit about why it's such a different environment for creatures down there?
Great question. Short answer, because water is heavy. And the more water volume that you stack, the deeper you go, you have more volume, right? And so that volume is stacking and stacking and stacking, and it's kind of like a block of like a cinder block that just keeps stacking and stacking. And the deeper you go, it just gets heavier and heavier, and that pressure builds the deeper you go. Yeah.
I encourage our kids, like, if you hold like a bucket of water, you see how heavy that is? Well, imagine that on your head, and then imagine another bucket on your head, and keep going up. If you've swum to the bottom of a deep pool, you'll start feeling this. But we love featuring where they take like a styrofoam cup and they put it on the outside of something like ROV Sebastian. And when you bring it back up from the depths, it's crushed down to almost nothing because the pressure is so great. It's sort of a weird thing to think about because we don't often go swimming down, 30, 100 feet unless we're very special divers. But it's a great question. Thanks, guys. All right, YouTubers, you're welcome to chime in too. But in lieu of that, while we're waiting, we've got time for another round of questions with all our classes. So, Mr. Hancock, come on back in and take us away. Hey.
Okay, awesome. One of my students was wondering, what's one of the biggest challenges you face?
Ooh.
Biggest challenges we face. I like that question. From a purely scientific answer stance to this question, I think justifying the animals that we collect and showing them in a way they deserve to be showed, because many times a picture of a live animal is so precious. You only have so long to capture that animal's essence in a way that people will respond and care about that. And so biggest challenges for me are with my photography is broadcasting those animals in the best light and not missing anything unique about them. Biggest challenge, I think, as a whole, and what taxonomists face, is not enough people to describe all of the things we're finding. And going back to that is that we're probably sitting on mountains and mountains of new species, and we need new generations of people to study taxonomy and shorten the timeline for a description of a new species, because as of right now, the average time it takes from discovering a species and bringing it up and describing it is 13 years. And so we as the next generation need to shorten that time so we can get a better idea of the true diversity of the deep.
What a humble answer. And I want to stress, because it's such a weird thing to think about, that we would go and collect things but not necessarily figure out what we've collected till later. Like Charles Darwin's expeditions, these grand voyages of discovery from like 150 plus years ago. He collected so many specimens that went straight to museums that they have still not gone through them all. So there might be new species found like 170 years ago that we still haven't had the chance to really look through because there's just such an incredible volume of them. So it's great that we have this problem. Like, it's a great problem to have that there are so many cool things being discovered that it's hard to even know what they all are. But it does open up an opportunity for students like you and for scientists of all kinds in history to explore and find new things from those collections. So great question, guys, and thanks, man. All right.
Yep.
Holy Family, come on back in, and then we'll wrap up with our Spring Valley Middle crew in just a minute. This has been such a fun broadcast. Come on in, guys. Grade 4s, take us away.
How long could sea creatures live in fresh water?
Ooh, cool question. And
Sorry, repeat it one more time.
No worries. Yeah. How long can sea creatures live in fresh water?
Not long. Not long at all. Yeah, We don't keep them in fresh water ever, unless they're already dead. Yeah, there is a certain mineral balance that is needed for them to aerate themselves, and there aren't enough. The chemistry of fresh water is all wrong for their cells, in short, and it is completely deadly to keep them in fresh water for any amount of time.
I love that we got this question because we hardly ever get it. There are very, very few select species on this planet that can go between one and the other, but they've got really special adaptations to do that. There's not really a direct human analog. I think the closest thing would be to say, how long can we breathe underwater? And it's like, we don't have gills, so we can't. That would go very poorly for us very fast without things like scuba gear. And so same thing sort of applies. Salt and fresh water seem the same to us being on land, like land lubbers, but for a sea creature, totally, totally different. And thanks for that, man. That was great. All right. Time flies and you're having fun. I want to stress for all our kids, schmidtocean.org. Check out the whole cruise here. ROV Sebastian, so much to explore and discover there. But we are going to wrap up with one more from Spring Valley Middle. Come on back in and take us away, guys. Hey.
What have you found more species of carnivorous, herbivores, or omnivores?
Interesting question. Cool.
Great question. On this cruise, it's been quite a mix. We have found a lot of sea cucumbers, which are herbivorous, but we've also found quite a mix of large polychaetes like unicid here that is carnivorous, and sea spiders that are carnivorous. So I would say it's a very good mix with some omnivorous, eating both plants and animals, mixed in. It's always a mix. Yeah. Great question.
It's such a weird ecosystem too, because so many things that live on the seafloor rely on this detritus, like these dead things that just float down from the surface, and then they ultimately eat those. So it's quite unlike other places where you have way more herbivores than you have carnivores. It's a special place, the deep sea, and it's why it holds such an allure to voyages like yours and students like ours. Well, with that, we are nearing the very end of the broadcast. Is there any last message you want to leave our kids with today about the RV Falkor 2 or your voyage, or anything to say farewell with before we bring in our kids to say goodbye?
Absolutely. I mean, these animals need to be done justice, and it can only be done with the next generation of scientists and taxonomists. So if you're curious in a career in marine biology, go for it. Get involved early, and because these animals simply need you. And if that could be my one message I would pass along, that would be that.
Thanks so much, man. Your passion and knowledge came through wildly in today's program, so I really appreciate having you. A big thank you to the whole Falkor 2 team for such a beautiful broadcast as always. And how we wrap up every show is I'm going to bring in all our classrooms to say thank you and farewell. So Mr. Hancock's class, audibly, Holy Family Crew, Spring Valley Middle, thank you so much.